Hi there and welcome back to this channel. This is where I talk about music production, the gear I use to create my tracks, computers and general nerdy stuff. Today's category is general nerdy stuff because I'm going to build a storage server that is mainly going to be used for Chia farming and plotting. So this is also a long-term project. If the Chia cryptocurrency doesn't get any traction, dies down, I'm going to use this system as a normal storage server based off of Unraid, where I'm running Plex servers and of course store my YouTube videos like this. They take up a lot of space and my already existing Unraid server is actually soon filled up, so this build had to come at some point anyway. If you haven't seen it already, I have another system that is farming and plotting Chia based off some old hardware hard drives I had laying around. Link to that video should pop up here somewhere. You can click that and watch that if you want. But today it's a completely new system and it's with new parts. And for parts, I have listed some of them in the description below, and they are affiliate links to Amazon, and if you use those links I get a little cut if you buy something, but the price won't get any higher for your sake. The build is based on a case from Fractal Design, Meshify 2 XL. I like it because of the size, because I have always been building my PCs in Fractal Design cases. The possibility to have it in a storage setup, that means that we can have a lot of hard drives in that case. I think the max amount of 3.5-inch drives is 23, but you need to buy some extra trays if you want to have that much drives in this case. As for the other parts, you can see them in the description below, so let's go ahead and build it, shall we? I always like to prep the motherboard with the CPU, memory and storage before I put them in the case. So today we have the ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard. I want this to be a good performance system. If I'm not going to use it for Chia plotting or farming, it should be a great server as well. So I like to put the motherboard on top of the motherboard cardboard box. This is a great and easy way to start building your system. I often start with a CPU. In this case it's the Ryzen 7 3700X. So here's the CPU, and it's a little bit difficult to see on the camera here, but in the corner here on the CPU you should have a little triangle or a little dot. This triangle or dot here should also line up with the triangle on the CPU socket. So we just open the CPU socket and we drop the CPU in. Just give it a little wiggle there so you can feel it's in the socket. You should not force it in, it should just drop in. And you can pull down the lever. The CPU is installed. Now I'm going to install the memory, and if you have just 2 memory sticks and not 4, take a look in the manual. The manual will show you recommended memory configurations based on how many memory sticks you have. And I have 2 memory sticks, meaning I have to set one in A2 and one in B2. Just push the memory sticks down, make sure they are into the slot and the right correct way. So you can see that it lines up with the notch here in the middle here, and you just press firmly on each side like so, and the memory is installed. So now I'm going to install the SSD I'm going to use for plotting. So this is M2 NVMe SSD. The motherboard manual says that if I install the SSD in this M2 slot, it will disable some internal SATA ports on the motherboard. So I have to install it on this M2 slot so I can access all of the SATA ports on the motherboard. So we have some screws here for the M2 drives. They are in the motherboard box, don't lose them. We're just going to install the standoff here, and I'm just using my finger to tighten it. I'm not using any tools to tighten the standoff. Then we take the SSD here. Make sure you line up this notch here with the notch in the motherboard here. So you just place it in here. You hear a little click, and you can see that it kind of lays on top of the standoff here. And when it does that, you can take out the screw and just screw it in. So because the SSD has its own heatsink here, I don't have to reattach this heatsink that came off from the motherboard. But if you use some of the Samsung 980 Pro, for example, you can screw this on. Just make sure you take off the protection on the thermal pad here, so you can some good heat transfer. For cooling, I'm going to go with the stock cooler here. It's maybe not the best cooler out there, but it's pretty good for being a stock cooler. It's not like I'm going to overclock the system or anything. Will be good with that. Different coolers have often different ways of mounting them to the motherboard. In some cases, the cooler requires you to unscrew the brackets here on the motherboard. The brackets here is what is going to hold the stock cooler down. And also remember that on some coolers you get pre-applied thermal paste. It's this stuff here. So in this case you don't have to apply thermal paste on the CPU here if you don't want to take it off and use something else. Take this cooler and mount it as it is now. Also on some coolers, make sure that you take off, some of them have a plastic protection. Make sure you take off that plastic protection so you don't have the plastic protection on when you install the cooler. It can be a little bit difficult to get it mounted, but I usually just take one side first as you try to tip it over, so you get that over the hook there, and then on the other side you get that over and you pull the lever down. And this cable, this is the CPU fan cable, connect that to the motherboard where it says, printed on the motherboard here, it says CPU fan. Let's try to do some cable management here. At least make it look like we are trying to make an effort here. Memory, CPU, CPU cooler, M2 SSD. We have basically mounted everything we need on the motherboard now, and it's ready to be mounted inside the case. So here is the Fractal Design Meshify 2 XL case configured in storage configuration. I have it standing up because it was the easiest way to film this, but I recommend to lay down the cabinet when you install the motherboard in it, because that's the most easy way to do it. So on some motherboards you have something called an IO shield, which is this that is in front of the ports. So if you just have gaping holes here and no shield, you have to now insert your IO shield here. But on some motherboards the IO shield is included, as you can see here, so you don't have to do that. You just have to remove this plastic. Yeah, that felt good. So as I said, I'm going to install this now in the case. It's going to be a little bit difficult doing upright, but what don't we do to get a good video? So you should line it up with the screw holes, line it up with the cutout here for the IO shield. On this particular case we have a pin in the middle here which stands up in one of the screw holes. It seems like it's doing that, so try to hold it with one hand, have a screw in one of your other hands, and just tighten some of them down. So there we have one. The screw should be in the accessory box here you get from Fractal Design. So the motherboard is in the case, seems like it's there, sturdy. Everything is screwed in. Now we need to install a GPU, because this CPU does not have integrated graphics. So for this build I bought the GeForce GT 710. It's one of the cheapest GPUs I could find. It has HDMI, DVI and VGA, and I have also ordered a HDMI virtual adapter, which I'm going to insert here so that I can remote to the machine without having a physical display connected. But I haven't got the part yet, so I'm not going to use that yet. GPUs, we install that in the PCI Express slot over here. Just make sure to remove the protector. So take out the bracket, install the GPU instead. Easy peasy. Install the thumb screw again, and we have some graphics for our server. In addition to that, I also have some PCI Express controller cards, 2 of them, which will give me in total 8 more SATA ports. These are also PCI Express cards, which are going to be installed in one of the slots here. I'm going to space them out a little bit. Also make sure you have enough PCI Express slots for the card you buy on your motherboard. I don't have actually slots for 2 of these, so I did something wrong here. So I have to see if I can fix that up somehow, but I'm at least able to put one card in here. So this means I now have 6 SATA ports here, and I have 4 SATA ports here, meaning 10 SATA ports available. So I can connect my boot SSD and 9 other storage drives, and I won't be able to add the other storage drives currently, at least. I have to get some other controller card. That's what happens when you don't research enough. So this card is a PCI Express 4 card, and I only have 2 slots where I can put a PCI Express 4 card in this motherboard. So that one slot is the GPU and another one for this one. So my second one is not possible to install on this motherboard, so I have to get one of those PCI Express 1X cards instead. But that's fine, I'm not able to use all of the drives in the start anyways. I can just build the system and start it up. As for power supply, I'm going to use the Corsair RM750X power supply. This should be enough for driving this system with a bunch of hard drives. I'm not going to show you how I connect the cables in the system. I actually have a PC build video. You should have a link over here or there somewhere, and I can link to that PC build video where I go into where I connect the cables for the power supply. So now it's just a matter of connecting the power supply. After that, screw the hard drives into these brackets here. The hard drive I'm using in this case is a Seagate Iron Wolf NAS drive, 8 terabyte drive. So let's get to work and see if we can get this fired up. So as you could see from that montage, we have a few 8 terabyte drives mounted in the case, and I tried to do some little cable management here. Don't shoot me. I know it's not perfect, but these SATA cables, they're actually not that good quality. The clip here doesn't hold the SATA cable in, so you can just pull it out, at least almost every one of them. So here are the drives. As you can see, I have it's empty over here. That's because the drives are up there, and I'm waiting for brackets to mount them. I'm also waiting for more power cables, but I can still start up the system and see if it works. As for fans, I have the included Corsair fans here, so I think it's 120 millimeters if I'm not mistaken. So I have one there, and I'm probably going to get one here and there as well. That's why I have a gap here for future fans. The system is ready to be started up. I'm going to use the iPhone camera, so I will apologize a little bit for the audio probably and the video, but that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be the easiest way for me. So now we are ready to fire up this system and see if it works and if we can get some Ubuntu and things like that installed. So now let's try to fire it up. This is literally the first time I'm trying it, and see if we get any picture here. An AMD system is always taking its time for the first start. And here are the hard drives. That was some noisy drives. Okay, and we have a picture. Let's go into the BIOS. And now we fast forward to a few hours later. There was some issues. So finally I'm inside the BIOS. I had huge issues getting the system up and working. The drive I am supposed to install the system on, this Patriot drive, doesn't work. When I install this drive in the system, it just hangs on the BIOS screen here, and it doesn't go into the BIOS. As you can see here, I'm now starting the install of Ubuntu. If you want a video of how you install Ubuntu on your computer, there should be a link up here somewhere. I have made a video on that and it's on my channel, so please watch that if you want. I also noticed that this One of the drives I bought was defective. It just stood there in the boot trying to spin up, preventing the computer to boot and go into BIOS. So I have 2 defective drives now. So I have 4 hard drives connected, 4 8TB hard drives, the Corsair NVMe drive connected to the system. I was planning to plot on that drive, and now I need to install Ubuntu on that Corsair drive and have the OS installed there in addition to having it as a plot drive. That was not my intent. I was planning to have this drive as the Ubuntu install drive, system drive if you will. But when the parts are defective, you have to just do things another way. So I have to send these things in to repair and get them replaced. But I can't wait until I get them here. I need to start farming and plotting now. So I have started the install of Ubuntu. As you can see here, the desk is pretty messy here. I always try to keep it tidy, but I need to clean this up. So I had some problems getting the system started, as you saw in the previous clips here, but now I at least have the NVMe SSD and Ubuntu installed on that. Even though I didn't really plan that, I wanted the Ubuntu system to be installed on the SATA SSD instead. But now the system is up and running here, so it's plotting on the internal drive here, and it's also plotting on another MP600 SSD connected in a USB 3 enclosure connected to the PC. I'm doing that so I can utilize all of the SATA connectors on the PCs for storage drives. I'm also currently synchronizing the blockchain on the Ubuntu machine here, and I want to farm on this machine as well. Currently I'm farming on my, let's say, gaming production PC, but since this is now a Ryzen based system, we have a little bit more performance, so it should be able to farm and plot as well at the same time. So the tool you see here is something called htop, showing you some information about your system, showing you how many threads you have. Here we have 1 to 16 threads. The utilization of those threads shows you how much memory you have, how much swap space you have, and what kind of processes is running. So this is just something you install by typing sudo apt-get install htop, and you get it there, and you just type htop in the terminal, and you get this nice little tool. As for plotting, I have just another tab here, plotting on one of the MP600 drives, and then I have another tab here, plotting on one of the other MP600 drives. Currently I'm not running any parallel plotting, and that's because I want to check the logs and see how much time it's using for one plot. Then I'm going to use that knowledge to use the plotman tool, which will make me able to perhaps make 2 or 3 plots in parallel on these drives, maybe 2. I'm not going to show that in this video. That may be in another video. If enough of you will like this video or say that you want to see that, I may do a video about that. I'm a little bit new in how to configure that as well, so I'm kind of trying this as I go. That's just the way it is in this space. I'm just learning by doing. I think that's interesting and fun. That's basically the build. The PC is not really finished yet. I still have a few more hard drives to install in the system. I also have to create some RMAs and return the defective hard drives, which I got. And I still need some more power cables to my power supply so I can fire up more of the hard drives. And I also need to buy another controller card because I bought a PCI Express 4 controller card, and that I don't have any more PCI Express 4 slots, so I have to go for a PCI Express 1 card. And as I said in the start of this video, this is going to be a system where in a while I'm probably going to use it as a storage server and run a few services on my home network using Unraid. But until that, I'm probably going to have it just staying maybe for half a year or something, farming Chia. So for plotting now, I have my desktop PC, which is using one Samsung SSD. It's using 3 old 120 gigabyte SSDs, which is plotting. I'm also using, of course, this new machine, which is plotting at least 2 plots, probably going to be a bit more when I'm tuned it. But still with that, I see that the net space is actually increasing more than I can plot plots. So that means that you can see in the client there, the time to win a block actually goes up. So the time to win a plot goes up. So if you buy a system and you need some return on your investments right away, I would seriously consider your situation before you perhaps loan money or invest in something that maybe doesn't give you that return that fast. And this makes me think about the earlier times when you had things like this, you know. I don't know if you have been in the space for a while, but this is one of the Bitcoin USB eruptors. This is 330 megahashes. You could use this to mine Bitcoin back in the day. And back in the day when you mined Bitcoin using these, it didn't give you that much Bitcoin in, let's say, US dollar value at that time. But if you had kept that Bitcoin you mined back then today, I think you would be happy today. That's kind of how I'm thinking about this. I also have done some Ethereum mining a few years ago, and I stopped mining Ethereum because of the price, I guess, because the power costs was higher than the amount of value of Ethereum you got. So what was the point, right? But I could pay the power cost. That wasn't any issue. It was just a few GPUs, I think 3 or 4. But then again, the power of hindsight, if I had kept those GPUs mining just throughout the years and looking at the Ethereum price today, well, it would be pretty nice, if to say so. And that's kind of a way I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of Chia. I have no idea where the price goes, but I haven't used that much money that I have to get it back. Okay, so you have to realize that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I can build this system. Let's say one Chia is worth $10,000. Just say if Bitcoin goes to $1 million or 100K, I mean, and maybe one Chia goes to, let's say, 10K. And if we win 2 Chia in 1 year, that's 20K. That's probably all right, wouldn't you say? And again, I don't take this as advice. I'm just trying to project my thinking onto you and why I'm building a system like this for having a storage server for recording videos for you guys. Maybe I'll up it to 4K or 8K because I'm definitely going to have the storage. Yeah, so this server is not done. I have to still be doing some improvements to it and installing new parts when they get here. But it's up and running and it's up and plotting. I hope you liked the build. I hope you like my reasoning for it. I don't think I'm going to do a lot of videos like this. I'm probably going to focus back on music production, but hey, if you think this is interesting, please share it with others. And yeah, until next time, take care. I will see you in the next video.